We are live. How we doing, everybody? Even though I feel like I actually may know the answer to that, it's probably confused. It's left with a lot of questions. Still a little frustrated with David Stearns. I'd say that's an understatement. But we got breaking news, everybody. I just posted not even an hour ago on X. I dare you, New York Mets, to go out and make a move today that is not a minor league signing with a spring training invite. And lo and behold, they listen to me. Will Salmon, great friend on the platform, was talking last night on SNY's Baseball Night in New York and breaking down how Jorge Polanco could very well be an option for the New York Mets. Obviously, he was saying this because he knew that the deal was basically going to happen, but what happens in the space with reporters, especially including someone like myself who's not a reporter, but when relayed information, there are times where I may say the following: yeah, I really like this player in particular, and that comes right before the Mets actually land them because you know a thing ahead of time. So shout out to Will Salmon, who of course threw it out there yesterday, so some Mets fans at least had some level of an idea as to who Jorge Polanco is. In case you guys have been living under a rock, the news has officially broken today from Jeff Passan and everyone else in company that the New York Mets are signing Jorge Polanco, infielder / DH, to a 2-year, $40 million contract. Now, let me just get this off my chest right away. Jorge Polanco is going to be the Mets' majority first baseman for next season. You may not love that. You may absolutely hate that. And why? Because he's not Pete Alonso. So I'm not trying to sell to you or pitch to you that, oh my God, this is such a tremendous pickup. Night and day difference from himself and Pete. Far from it. But what we are here to break down is why exactly the Mets made this move, the upside with Jorge Polanco, and I'm going to be completely frank, I do like him as a player. I liked him a lot with Seattle this year. He put up over an 800 OPS against both left-handed and right-handed pitching. He's a very balanced player and can play all over the place, but doesn't have elite defensive value, which is why the Mets are going to play him more at first base and DH than anything else for the 2026 season. And yes, this does mean that the New York Mets are more than likely going to land another bat, potentially a lefty bat in particular, to be a contrast to Jorge Polanco to further platoon at first base and DH. And one player that sticks out like a sore thumb to me right away should have happened is one Ryan O'Hearn or someone along those lines. To be determined if the Mets actually go ahead and do that exact move, but I am confident that the route that the Mets are going right now under David Stearns is they're trying to add guys that not only bring plenty of offensive value, but also guys that can be very versatile for them in ways that Polanco doesn't need to solely be at first base. Will Salmon of The Athletic has already relayed in his latest piece that you guys can check out, but I'll just summarize it for you, that Polanco is expected to get the majority of work at first base for the Mets next season. He's coming off of a very impressive year with the Seattle Mariners, where he sees 64 runs scored, 26 home runs, 78 RBIs, 6 stolen bags, a 265 average. My graphic is completely flawed here, so I honestly think I might need to fix it in real time. Please ignore the on base. The on base down below is incorrect. It is not 236. It is, I believe, 326. And I honestly flip-flopped the numbers by accident like the idiot that I am because I was rushing to get this set up as fast as humanly possible. So while I go ahead and try to fix that in real time, in the meantime, do not hesitate from telling me, Mets fans, exactly how you feel with this latest move. As you guys, again, can see it right here, right now, beside me. I'd also like to make something abundantly clear, folks. I told you all that we were going to have a video that dropped on the platform today. That video did not drop yet because more news has come out, and that video was always planning to discuss players from the San Diego Padres. And lo and behold, the Mets are in trade talks with the San Diego Padres. No, I'm not joking. It's factually correct, and I'll expand more on that in a video that'll drop later on today, separate from this live stream. Because I know you may wonder, Wardy, what do you mean? Is Tatis going to get dealt? Is Lindor going to get dealt? No. If you guys are under the expectation that that'll happen, I have a bridge to sell you. The Mets are not in trade talks with the Padres to trade Lindor or to acquire Tatis right now. They're all in on their pitching, and we're going to expand more on that because the Padres are the most feasible team for the Mets to trade with this offseason for pitching. And like I said, I got a lot to say on that front. There's a lot of pitchers I love from the Padres organization, but what it will take to land them, that is to be determined. So give me just a quick second, everybody, so I live in real time can go ahead and adjust this Jorge Polanco graphic because I'm a schmuck and did not have this exactly how I need to look for each and every one of you. And in the meantime, again, don't hesitate from letting me know your excitement, your frustration, and everything else in between in the live chat and to our replay replay viewers that'll be watching this after it's been live here, hit that like and subscribe button on your way. And we're getting awfully close to 37,000 subscribers, folks, and we're giving away another brand new Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber once we hit that milestone. So make sure you smash those buttons in case you guys haven't already. Thank you so much for getting involved here, and thank you so much for being a part of the WardyNYM family. So now let me go ahead real quick. Let's go adjust this just for a second so that way I make sure I have Polanco's on base correct here. 326. Yeah, I literally looked at the numbers and I just did the complete opposite of what I was supposed to do. The graphic down below I have at 236 when it should be 326. So let me go ahead and adjust this real quick, everybody. I'm aware that I have plenty that I need to address on the donation front. I will get to all that for you guys here in literally just one single second. Just bear with me as I get this all set up exactly how it's supposed to look here. Wow. Let me also send out this graphic so I have this in place as well. Give me 1 second, folks. Hold on 1 second. Oh my God, my phone is blowing up right now. Actually blowing. I'm not surprised, but it is kind of funny to see all at the same time. All right, guys, let's get into this. Let's talk about the newly appointed New York Metropolitan and Jorge Polanco. Again, if you guys did not see the reports, I will get to your donations. I promise we're going to address them all here in a second. This was the initial reports here that you guys can see. Let's go. Wolf Salmon of The Athletic, the first to be on it with this one, did a fantastic job. The Mets and Jorge Polanco have agreed to a 2-year contract. Jeff Passan reaffirms this, stating that infielder Jorge Polanco and the New York Mets are in agreement on a 2-year, $40 million contract. Sources tell ESPN he's expected to play first base and DH. This is wholeheartedly true. Jorge Polanco, just to give you guys some context, started last year for the Seattle Mariners getting reps at third base because they wanted to bring him back and they wanted to move him to a position of an area of need. That wasn't bad when he was there. However, they ultimately had Polanco play the bulk of his season last year at DH. To be quite exact, Polanco played right around 74% of his 2025 reps in the Seattle Mariners lineup at the designated hitter position, and that is more than likely something that he will platoon at first base with the New York Mets heading into next season. Now, I know you may say to yourself, Wardy, why in God's name did the Mets just sign someone who's not a true first baseman to go get consistent first base reps? And the reason is, clearly the Mets are confident that given Jorge Polanco's ability to play third, play second, play all over the diamond effortlessly, is going to be a smooth transition for him at first. Because otherwise, it's a complete contradiction as to why you did not heavily pursue Alonso to bring him back because of his lack of defensive value. Now, I understand lack of defensive value wasn't the sole decider in why the Mets did not bring Pete Alonso back, but one way or another, they did not bring him back, and Alonso, being arguably the worst defensive first baseman statistically in baseball, certainly was a factor one way or another. When we look at someone like Jorge Polanco, let's get into him. Let's take a look at his Baseball Savant page. The page that you're about to see is not his numbers, so please disregard that. That is Eugenio Suarez, who I was initially planning to discuss in a video today, but I have a feeling I'm not going to now because I don't see a world where the Mets would bring in Suarez at this rate after bringing in Polanco, unless they get really creative about what their configuration is going to be. As you guys can go ahead and see here, 74th percentile for Jorge Polanco in XWOBA, 78th in expected batting average, 73rd in expected slugging, 66th in average exit velocity, 62nd in barrel percentage, 63rd in hard hit. We see right around league average in sweet spot, just below league average in bat speed, 89 percentile in squared up percentage, right around league average in chase and whip percentage, 83rd in K percentage, so I love that. He has a very good eye at the plate, clearly, and right around league average in walk percentage. He's in the 83rd percentile in batting run value, 62nd in base running value, a little bit below league average in fielding run value. As we know, he played all over the diamond last year, which led to a 17th percentile outs above average, 20th in arm strength, and right around league average there in sprint speed. So again, you're not bringing in Jorge Polanco to be a guy that's expected to shore up the hot corner consistently. That was initially what my mind brought me to, but then after seeing how much Polanco played at DH this past year, it was abundantly clear that he's not someone that's going to be getting consistent third base reps. So if there is a role where the Mets trade Brett Beatty this offseason, not that I wish it, I'm just saying who knows what's going to happen. Should that happen, it will more than likely not be for Polanco to be the replacement. He will be getting most reps at DH and first base for the Mets in 2026. But here's the thing, because he's not going to be fully committed to one sole position, that's why I'm inclined to believe that the Mets are either going to sign someone that has more of a DH profile than Polanco and give him majority reps at first first base, or B, they're really going to get creative with a platoon like a Ryan O'Hearn, who I think would make a lot of sense at this point, given the route that they're now going between these two. And the beauty about this, and I say beauty with an asterisk, because I completely understand, again, if you are a Pete Alonso fan, if you don't want anyone besides Pete Alonso, nothing that I say is going to satisfy you today. And I'm not trying to sell you on that. I'm just trying to tell you what is the philosophy of David Stearns, no matter how much you love it or hate it. That's what we're here to break down the platform, covering everything at Mets land 24/7, 365. But what is also true is that Ryan O'Hearn would fit a team need, splitting time of Polanco between first base and DH. So again, for the times that Polanco's at first, have O'Hearn at DH, and vice versa. O'Hearn has very good splits that we have seen him do. He's a guy that can handle lefty pitching well, even as a lefty batter that we've seen. He didn't transition too well when he landed in San Diego after having a great first half that we saw with the Orioles this past season, but he's a fantastic defensively minded first baseman, so that's why he's without a doubt the first guy that comes to mind to me, depending on matchups. I have been on record stating to each and every one of you, I am not a fan of the Mets continuing a platoon route at DH. I honestly am fed up with the idea of going after guys that, oh, they look great against righties, but they're terrible against lefties and vice versa. However, what is also true is that the bar has been so unbelievably low in that regard for the Mets the past couple of years that if they go down a route, say like Polanco, say like O'Hearn, or someone of greater value, that is still without a doubt the best route that they've went down in that regard since the DH became universal all those years ago. Because think about it in context. If we go back through the years of 2021, 2022 range, you of course had the beginning of J.D. Davis and Dom Smith before it blew up entirely. Then you had the Darren Ralphs, the Vogelbacks, the Tyler Naquins of the world. Then of course we had Starling Marte, Jesse and Winker, and then more of that this year with Vientos getting reps at DH. But the one commonality is that at the DH position, the Mets have been absolutely horrendous in finding consistency. Polanco, who had an over 800 OPS against both righties and lefties this season, is going to come in to hopefully shore up that area. Again, for context, he had an 802 OPS against that we saw this season, and then an 880 OPS, 888 OPS there. So again, plenty to like about Polanco. I think that this is going to be a nice pickup for the New York Mets. He's someone that's going to come in and bring them not only value on the offensive end, but someone who's a veteran, someone who I'm sure is a very good clubhouse character as well. And I cannot say this enough. I completely understand Mets fans that do not love this, because you're not going to be satisfied with any moves that aren't blockbuster, groundbreaking news that looks like it's going to be a slam dunk of a pickup. So once more, I'm not trying to sell you on that. I'm just telling you how it is. I'm telling you what the Mets are doing, and what they're doing at the moment is that they are making moves, and they're going to make a lot more moves. I will not be shocked at all if we find out either later today or in the coming days that the Mets have a trade with the Padres having solidified. We're going to expand on that in content later on today, so make sure you guys are on the lookout for it. And yes, we're going to talk about it as well, because the Mets have been in trade talks with the Padres. Or after their pitching. Not only are they after starters of their rotation, but they are after their relievers. And yes, the Mets are in the market for the best relievers that the Padres have to offer. And yes, you know who those relievers are. And yes, I have a lot to say about it, but I'm not going to spoil it in this one, because that's what our video for later on today is all about. But let's get to some of these donations real quick. We're gonna talk more about Jorge. We'll get into his game, but actually, before I do the comments for a second, I did just want to give you guys a little bit more context as to what Polanco's been doing in his career. Now, bear in mind where he's been, the lineups he's been a part of, and the commonality that he's never played for a big market team. So this is without a doubt the biggest adjustment that Polanco's going to have in his career. How does he handle New York? He spent a decade in Minneapolis with the Twins, and then he's been the past couple of years with the Seattle Mariners. Very small market, loyal, diehard fan bases in which he's been beloved there. How will that transition now to the New York Mets in on the big stage and the big market? To be determined. So I'm telling you right now, if Jorge Polanco looks like that he is scared of his own shadow and cannot handle the New York market, I'll be the first to tell you how much of an idiot David Stearns was for yet again going with small market player options to try to define a big market club when these players don't have the track record nor can handle what the market has to offer. I'm not saying that Jorge won't be able to handle it. I'm just saying that there is a big question mark as to how will he handle New York after playing in small markets literally his entire career. And this is the same thing that I've said to you guys about literally everything regarding whoever the Mets acquire this offseason. Whoever they land, for good or bad reason, everything in between, you have to make sure that these guys can handle this kind of market. And I saw the Pat Ragazzo tweet. Again, I'm going to expand on that in my video today. I'm not worried about that tweet right now, because all the players from Padres, I assure you I'm going to break down thoroughly. That was always my intention and plan for today's video, so I'm actually so grateful thankful that I didn't do it yet, because news actually came out that connecting the dots that, oh, the Padres are a clear trade fit for the New York Mets. Now they are, as the Mets are in active talks to try to land some of their pitching. But nonetheless, as you guys can see here, 26 home runs for Jorge Polanco. That's the most he's had in his career since 2021, where he had 33 and 98 RBIs in one of his final years there for the Minnesota Twins. Last season, Polanco in 118 games, and albeit, let's also bear in mind, he's been batting in Seattle. They haven't had a deep lineup, and that bat always goes to die in that ballpark. 16 home runs, 45 RBIs, a 213 average, a 296 on base, a 355 slug, good for a 93 WRC plus, just below league average in 2024. The year prior, we saw in only 80 games, so I don't care about that. Let's get a sample size of at least 120 plus games. That was 2021 with 33 home runs, 98 RBIs. He had 22 home runs, 107 runs scored, and 79 RBIs in the 2019 Juice Baseball era season. So Polanco's a career, as you can see, 263 hitter, 330 on base, 442 slug, almost 20 WAR to conclude what has been a very good career for him. And not conclude, but to collect what he's done so far in his career. So that is immediately what you're getting in Polanco. You're going to be getting someone that, again, can play all over the diamond, can play second, can play third. If you need him at short, even though the Mets obviously don't, you can put him there. But that is not what the Mets are really bringing him for. They're bringing him to handle more first base and DH. And yes, goes without saying, Jeff McNeil is not going to be a New York Met next season, okay? If you guys have not figured that one out yet, figure it out now. It's been abundantly clear since the start of the offseason, but this reaffirms exactly that. The Mets are shoring up every single position to make sure that Jeff McNeil has literally no value on this team whatsoever, because he's not going to be starting in the left field for the New York Mets in 2026. I promise you. And if he does, you can correct me and I'll say how much of a schmuck I am and how much I hate the configuration that David Stearns found himself building. So, having said that, let's get to your comments. Let's get to these donations. Hit that like and subscribe on your way in, everybody, as we're breaking down all the latest breaking news here in Metsland. And we have north of 2,000 people in the live chat. So all I ask is that if you guys haven't already, please help us get to 500 plus likes in the live show. It really means a lot. All I'm asking is for a quarter of you guys to hit that like button. I know we're not at 500 yet, so smash those buttons right now. Thank you kindly for that. Let's get into it. But to completely answer you, I like the player. I don't dislike the pickup. I'm just not satisfied until we see more moves for this Mets team. And I don't think I'm alone for feeling that way. So both things can be true. Jorge Polanco's not a bad pickup, but in the context of how much more the Mets need and how much uncertainty there is at the moment, you don't love it. So let's get into this. Okay, God, someday I can't stay in my own fan base. Everyone's acting like season starts tomorrow. This is true. This is what happens, especially after you lose top fan favorites in Diaz and Alonso. And for a sliver of time, my dog, Tyler Rogers. Hey, Jack, thank you for the dono. Great member here. We got Uncuffed Sports Podcast. Thank you for the donation. Juan Soto telling Stearns to fill this team with Dominicans so they can outnumber Lindor. That's hilarious. I don't believe that to be true, but that is funny. Thank you so much for that donation. Is Polanco Dominican? Okay, that would check out. Let's $10 holla. Hey, hi, Wardy, big fan. Can't help but think this offseason is a win-later mentality. I can't see how this team can improve enough to make up for the stars we lost. Don't see Stearns making a splash this year. That's perfectly fine to feel that way. And I'm not going to tell you that's a guarantee that anything's going to happen. All I'm going to tell you is it's only December 13th, and the Mets still have so much more moves to do. So let's still wait and see to figure out what exactly they're going to do, hopefully for the better for this club instead of it being for the worse. Because right now, I don't follow any Mets fan that are still rightfully frustrated by the top players we've lost. Nice player, nice move, if followed by big moves. That I agree with, Mark. I think that's a very valid response to make. Thank you for that donation. Pat with the $2 haul says, good player, not a fan of him being our first baseman. That's valid. Thank you for that donation. Yoshima with the $5 haul says the following, and of course, right as I was about to answer, it pops away from me. Someone said Polanco's Swedish. Oh, that was way too funny. I found that way too funny. That's... you just look at Polanco and he has blue eyes, blonde hair. He's playing hockey out of nowhere. Like, what? What happened here? Okay, let's see. Good player, not a fan of him being our first baseman. Okay, Yoshima says, I had a change of heart last night. No use being negative. We got to trust the process. Like this move a lot. Let him DH more and get Okamoto. If I'm being completely transparent, guys, I'll be very surprised if the Mets land any Japanese players this offseason. And there isn't a specific reason really why I feel that way. My gut is just telling me that the Mets aren't going to land Imai, they're not going to land Okamoto, and they're not going to land Murakami. I hope I'm wrong, because I like all those players to varying degrees, but the jury's still out as to really how much interest the Mets have in those markets. Right now, I'd probably say it's more preliminary with at least the position players, and Imai, your guess is as good as mine right now. From here on out, I am Professor Positive. I respect that, Yoshima. Thank you again for the donation. That's the kind of vibes that we need, especially with everything being so depressing lately in Mets land. But to continue on here, everybody, why did the New York Mets make this move? They made this move because they're trying to land players that have versatility, but also plus upside. And I don't blame the Mets for liking someone like Polanco. When you look at the season that I had, the only qualm that I have with acquiring someone like him is twofold. It is A, the fact that, again, he's never been in a big market his entire career. This is going to be an adjustment for him. He's never dealt with a fan base that is going to be as miserable as Mets fans will be. And Polanco can't hit a lick his first month in Queens. If the Mets are going to boo Lindor, just imagine how they'll treat a veteran like this who doesn't have the same track record. And secondly, and I think this is also a very important one to make note of as we evaluate someone like Polanco, is the fact that this is the best offensive season he's had since 2021. So there's something to be said about, yes, he's hopefully going to be added into a lineup that should be deeper on paper in 2026 than what he's had in previous years. But until that's established, until that comes to fruition, until we know exactly what we're getting building around Soto, Lindor, Polanco, and this entire Mets lineup, there's just so much uncertainty. And that uncertainty rings true when you're a fan trying to connect the dots as to, okay, this is a nice pickup, I don't hate it, but what else are we going to be doing here? Because if you do not properly allocate the remainder of the lineup, it's hard to envision Polanco having a season as productive as he just had with the Seattle Mariners. And I will preface this by saying that I understand that Mariners is not a batter's box. This is a guy that really thrived in a location, in a spot where you don't see guys thrive all that much offensively. Now, I know Cal Riley, the big dumper, has something to say about that. I know J-Rod has had his fair share of success, but the point stands. When you think of the Seattle Mariners for many years, it's been headlined by dominant pitching and an offense that just cannot get it fully together. They finally took another step up this year, and a key part of their puzzle, a key focal point in their lineup was the veteran, and Jorge Polanco helping in that regard. So I like Polanco. I like the upside that he brings to this Mets team. I like the fact that he can handle both righty and lefty pitching without a problem. That is all good things. And guys, Steve Phillips is literally a schmuck and has no clue what he's talking about. I know he used to be in the Mets front office. Doesn't mean he's smart. And this is the same Steve Phillips that said in confidence that Carlos Correa was for certain staying with the New York Mets when all the turmoil was going on. Steve Phillips has quite literally never been right over the past 5 years of myself covering the Mets when talking about the New York Mets with MLB Network or on radio, whatever it is. He has no clue what he's talking about. If he's referencing Lindor the Padres, that's because he, like everyone else that doesn't do their homework, that's an idiot and doesn't pay attention, went out and saw, oh wow, Lindor rumblings to the Padres, when in reality, the only reason why those rumblings started was because Master Flip, who's a friend of mine, a troll on X that is a diehard Mets fan, has posted Tatis to Queens as a hashtag, and with a Tatis Photoshop of him in a Mets uniform for a month straight, so much so to purposely piss off Padres fans to the point that the Padres fan base on X has countered that with Lindor to Padres. They started it as a troll. Now we have idiots in the media and idiots talking local Padres radio that are actually saying, oh, according to my sources, that there's something to be said about Lindor, Xander, etc. They have no clue what they're talking about. Lindor will not be traded this offseason to the Padres. Should the Mets make a trade with the Padres, they'll be landing pitching, they'll be giving up top prospects in doing so, and potentially controllable MLB talent. I'll talk more about that in our video later on today, but again, Steve Phillips has quite literally no clue what he's talking about at all, and I say that in confidence because I know damn well it's true. All right, thank you guys for those donations. Let's get to a couple more here, and then let's continue on in the live show. Getting to your first chiming in breaking news, the Mets have officially signed Jorge Polanco to a 2-year, $40 million contract to be their first base DH profile for next season and potentially 2027, given it's a 2-year deal. Does this mean Contreras is out of the pick? Yes, I would say this means Wilson Contreras is out of the picture. That is correct. And what was relayed from Will Salmon yesterday, he was literally saying things that he knew that he just couldn't say in certainty yet because it wasn't official. Salmon in his I'm actually just going to play it for you guys. I think that'll be easier. Salmon said in his segment yesterday, verbatim, that Contreras, well, that's someone the Mets have been talking to. That price is a bit steep right now for someone like him. So that's why he talked about, well, if the Mets don't go down that route, here's the options they may go down. Salmon knew in confidence last night that the Mets were going to sign Polanco more than likely. That's why he said everything that he said. So correct. This means that Wilson Contreras more than likely is not going to be traded to the New York Mets. Is it possible that I'm wrong? Sure. Maybe the Mets say, you know what, Polanco, you're going to be our majority DH next year, which is more than fine because if Polanco can give you production of hopefully 25 home runs and 70 to 90 RBIs, I'm not complaining from that, the DH position. That's still the best DH production that we've gotten out of every effing year since it's been universal. The bar's that low. So yeah, I'm not complaining if that's the route the Mets go down, but I'll have to see it to believe in the sense of the Mets actually landing Contreras after making a move like this. I'm not expecting it now. Well, you got my guy Dan with the $5 holla. Thank you, Dan. He says he's played a single game at first. I think the McNeil replacement DH still need Contreras. Yeah, no, again, I like Contreras a lot. He was tremendous at first this past year, and the Mets would like a more defensively sound first baseman, I'd imagine, to pair with Polanco. But I don't know exactly who they're going to land. Are they still going to go all in for Wilson Contreras? I'll be surprised. I think a guy like Ryan O'Hearn or someone along those profiles, especially as a lefty bat, would be more feasible at this point in time. But to be determined. Is there at least 30% chance we get Tatis? Not a chance in hell. No. Try like 5 to 10% right now. Jim, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Wardy, Polanco should be the DH, and do you see them at signing Luis Ariz for first base? No. I hate Luis Ariz. Oh, that's a fun transition. I'm so glad he brought Luis Ariz. Literally one of my least favorite players in the league. You want to know why I can't stand Luis Ariz? You want to know why I hope that man never lands in New York? And if he does, I'm not going to try to spin it that I like it. I will tell you verbatim that I don't like it. Here's why. Luis Ariz is a tremendous contact bat. He's the best contact bat in baseball. He has the best eye in baseball. No one commands a strike zone better than Luis Ariz. But here's what lies the problem. Luis Ariz, part of my French kiddos, put on the earmuffs. I'll give you a 3-2-1 count. 3, 2, 1, is dog shit at every position he plays. Ariz is worse defensively than even Jorge Polanco, whether he's at first, whether he's at second, wherever you put Ariz. He's such a lack of defensively sound player, and he has zero power whatsoever. So if Ariz starts to drop off with his contact ability, and as soon as he drops off the way that McNeil did, he has no value. Jeff at least has had some somewhat positive defensive value, including the outfield. He doesn't even have that. Okay, so no, Luis Ariz is someone I pray to God is never a New York Met. There's nothing about him that makes any sense whatsoever. Any sense. There's nothing about him that makes any sense to land if you're in the Mets' shoes at all. So no, I hope that doesn't happen. Now, again, I like this move. I don't dislike Polanco. As you guys can see from the highlights beside me, he has his value. As you can see from the numbers down below, he has his value. But all I care about now is how do you handle this New York market and what else do the New York Mets do? If you land O'Hearn, if you land maybe someone more established at first base, and then you hopefully add, I will say this much, and I may correct myself in the meantime. Polanco is someone who's going to play DH in first, right? So what is one other player that you could justify giving first base reps to, which would push Polanco more to DH for the times that this player doesn't play the outfield? And you want to know who that player is? It is absolutely Cody Bellinger. I believe the Mets still like Cody Bellinger. I believe the Mets would like Cody Bellinger a lot. The problem with Cody Bellinger is that, unfortunately, he's someone that may get a long-term contract this offseason. And we know how we know how David Stearns operates. He's not a guy who loves long-term deals for guys already at the age of 30. But Bellinger checks off the box. Bellinger is still what justifies. Lindor's not on the trade block per sources. You have no clue what you're talking about. Stop buying into the stupid narrative out there. My God. People, do your homework. It isn't hard. It takes 2 seconds to just figure out where this stems from, and it starts from Twitter trolls on X. I digress. Cody Bellinger can play outfield for you elite at any point. He can play first base for you elite at any point. And in doing so, for the times that you would say have Bellinger at first, you have Polanco at DH. And for the times that you say have someone like Polanco at first, then you keep Bell in the outfield depending on what your configuration is going to be. That is a route that makes sense. And what about Vientos? It goes without saying Mark Vientos will not be a New York Met next season. I'll be shocked if Mark Vientos is a Met next season. What the Mets just did is box Mark Vientos out of the organization even more than they ever had before. Mark will not be getting any third base reps next year, more than likely. He's a guy that obviously is a true DH profile. We know he doesn't even have a glove to handle first. So what does that mean? The Mets just landed someone who had 74% reps at DH last year. I'm inclined to believe that the Mets are still not going to be going ahead and bringing back Mark Vientos. Let's see here. You said that Heyman reported the Mets are out on Tucker and Bellinger. Did he just report that? Because if you didn't, then you're inaccurate. Yeah, no, he did not just report that. So that is fake news. That is not true at all. The Mets are still in those markets. It was literally just reported yesterday, as a matter of fact, that the Mets are still in the market for Bellinger and like him quite a bit. It's never been reported that the Mets are out of Tucker's market, even though I'll be genuinely surprised if they land Kyle Tucker. I have a feeling that one of these top outfielders is going to go the LA Dodgers. Andrew Friedman just said in an interview yesterday when breaking down the Edwin Diaz signing that, we feel pretty good about something, but we might need to be a little patient. So whether that's Tucker, whether that's Belly, or whether that's Tarek Skubal, all I know is that the Dodgers are destined to continue to rip the heart straight out of my chest this offseason, because that's what they tend to do best. So Dodgers are far from done, and we'll see what the Mets do, if they're going to move lateral or if they're going to do something great. I watch and support your channel, but seriously, F the Mets and Stearns. Losing Pete Diaz was the last straw. Lost me right now. That I don't blame you. Isaac, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate your support. You've been a long-time follower here. Thank you kindly for all of that. And again, I'm not trying to sell you at all on being happy, being sad, being somewhere in between in regards to what is happening with the Mets right now. I'm just telling you why they're doing what they're doing. It's one clip. Here is Here's Wolf Salmon last night, knowing damn well that Jorge Polanco is going to be a New York Met, saying why he was a feasible option for the Mets. Listen up, everybody.
Wilson Contreras from the Cardinals could be a possibility. That's been rumored about in trade talks online, etc. He could be an option. I think they're going to shoot a little bit higher than Wilson Contreras, though, at least initially. He's a good option. He's got a good bat, but he's an expensive player that just went over to first base. To his credit, played the position fairly well, but I think they're going to probably want a little bit more security defensively there. Some people to keep in mind, Bellinger, who you mentioned. There's also somebody like a Jorge Polanco, I think is a creative choice, actually. Everybody thinks of that guy as a third baseman, maybe a second baseman in this market. I think he could play some first base, too, and that's not really the name that jumps to people's minds, but he's a pretty good offensive player.
I'm going to let him break it down. I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because I'm like, there's a reason that Jorge Polanco's name came out of thin air last night. This is the reason that I just find it hilarious. He's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, no, he'd be a nice fit. Of course he'd be a nice fit, because the Mets were closing in on signing him. He knew. And Will literally has had almost every significant scoop this offseason for the Mets and across Major League Baseball. It's honestly been very impressive. He's quite literally been one of the top guys in all of MLB this year. He's done a very good job.
Player, and I feel like his defense is a little bit underrated. I know he's taken some ground balls at first base. It's just a possibility, right? There are numerous other ones. Ryan O'Hearn is out there in free agency. There's a bunch of other trade candidates that they could explore, but I think they're going to target defense, no surprise, right, from what we've heard all offseason so far, and then just make their way to see the market, act with that discipline, perhaps, Al, and see what's out there.
Okay, I like Polanco. That's not bad. I watched him during the...
Sorry, Danny, you do great work. And Danny Wexelman, if you guys don't know her, make sure to check her out. She's without a doubt one of the best baseball minds, especially in the New York sports space. Cannot emphasize enough. She's very smart, very savvy. I have a good relationship with her as well. Don't be surprised if we have her on the platform this offseason. But let's go back ahead and let's get back up here to more on, again, the Jorge Polanco news. I'm still so pissed off about Tyler Rogers going to the Blue Jays. That pisses me off. It really does. But let's get to some more comments here, everybody. Then I'm going to cut things off for replay viewers. First, let's talk about Jorge Polanco's home and away splits. Something to bear in mind. Contrary to what usually happens with batters in Seattle, Jorge Polanco actually thrived in that ballpark. And that's encouraging. And you want to know why? Polanco thrived in a huge pitcher's park in Seattle. 288 average with a 902 OPS last year at home. On the road, Polanco had a 243 average, 740 OPS. But here's the thing. Even though I don't love that OPS, that's still better than Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor was dog water on the road this past year. Like, even worse. I'm not exaggerating. It's a fact. We'll take a look at Lindor's splits. He was horrendous on the road this past season. Great at home. Loved and thrived with my girl, with having all the fans cheering for him, having his family in attendance. But on the road, Lindor looked like Jorge Polanco from the 2024 season. If you know, you know. So as we continue on here, let's get into more on these splits. Let's take a look at how he handled, of course, number of outs. Let's take a look at clutch stats. Okay, Jorge Polanco. Oh, baby, I love what I'm seeing. Okay, 2 outs, runners in scoring position, Jorge Polanco, and what was a limited sample size, had a 400 average and a 1,100 OPS. And late and close situations this year, Polanco batted only .241, but a very respectable .852 OPS. In tied ball games, Polanco had a .265 average and an .861 OPS. When we look ahead in ball games, Polanco had a .266 average and .829 OPS. When the team was behind, a .265 average and a .773 OPS. So honestly, pretty balanced. And I'm very encouraged to be looking at someone that didn't fall off a cliff depending on the circumstances he was in there. That's important. Now let's get on to the following. This is very interesting. Okay, so in the high leverage circumstances, this is what you want to know. This is what the Mets need. They need guys who can step up in the clutch. Jorge Polanco is that. In high leverage situations this year, in 102 plate appearances, a .402 batting average, and a 1,100 OPS. Tremendous. In medium leverage, .220 average, 731 OPS. Not nearly as good, but also it's medium leverage. And low leverage, .249 average, 760 OPS. Jorge Polanco's a dog. A literal dog. He stepped up. He was one of the most clutch batters for the Seattle Mariners this past season. That is what you're looking for. That's what I'm encouraged by. And that is what I'm happy to see now that he's landed with the New York Mets. That's exactly what you want. And again, 2 outs, runners in scoring position. Polanco, 400 average, 1,100 OPS. He has the numbers that you're looking for in those high leverage, clutch, or lack thereof spots. That's what you need. And if we also take a look at it, everybody, Jorge Polanco's numbers, 800 OPS in innings 7 through 9 last year. Okay? That's good. That's good. Very good, as a matter of fact. Because you want to know what the Mets did in the 9th inning this past year, in the 8th inning? Nothing. Literally nothing. Couldn't find a clutch gene if it smacked them across the face. So that, again, is what you're getting Jorge Polanco as the overall player. Someone who clutched up in postseason, someone who had a very good year in Seattle for the Mariners as a veteran, mostly DH option, but of course can play all over, that we know. Polanco brings his value. He will hopefully be more at DH than first base next season because that would make sense from a defensive value standpoint. And knowing that this guy stepped up, hit a couple bombs against Tarek Skubal in the playoffs, clearly he's doing something right. So both things can be true. Can you be upset about this is not being Pete Alonso? And can you be upset about losing your fan favorite players? Absolutely. No doubt about it. I'm in that contingent of fans as well. But in that same breath, can you also say that the Mets didn't make a bad move here, that they brought in a guy that clearly is going to bring value to them? Absolutely. Both things can be true, and I think that's where we're at right now. And Polanco doesn't strike out. Exactly. He's a very good eye at the plate. I said it earlier, but I'll say it once more just for those that need to see this in the back. Again, Polanco has very, very good numbers that you guys can see here. K percentage, 83rd percentile, 89th in squared up percentage, and above league average or just around league average in pretty much every statistic on the offensive front that you'd be looking to find if you're Polanco. Or does this mean Marte's as good as gone? I don't know. That's a good question. But I would say, given the fact that Polanco will probably get a good amount of reps at DH, yeah, I'd say there's a solid chance that Marte's still out of here. But to be determined. The OBP sucks. Who cares? Literally, who cares? Like, genuinely, who cares if the OBP isn't dominant because he's not an OBP player? Have you not realized that? I care about the fact that he was just under 500 slug this past year. That's good. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a 265 average. I think he's going to honestly be a nice fit for this team as long as he can handle the pressure. And he did in playoffs, so God willing, he can do that with the Mets as well.